Okay, 3, 2, 1, and we're live. Hello there, everybody. Hello, Brittany. How are we?
I'm good. How are you, Fred?
Flustered, underprepared, stressed, but I'm here on time.
You're always here earlier than I am, so I don't know what you're even talking about because you're always on in the studio before I am.
Yeah, well, I've as you know, I've been going back to rehab, and
Yeah.
I've just been driving home in the rain, and I hate driving
Oh.
in the rain. It stresses me out. It's like you have to
Oh.
concentrate. You have to concentrate on the road quite a lot, and also it's just dodgy. It's stressful, especially because
Yeah.
there's a mountain road that goes all the way from Evian to here, and it stresses me out because you get like trucks thundering down the other way, and when it's raining loads, and I've got squeaky windscreen wipers that annoy me. And yeah, and then I'm like, got to get here because I've got to go live at 6 o'clock, and then I'm like, okay, hello
Yeah.
everybody, and I'm like, yeah, and so I'm not exactly at ease, but yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, yeah. The rain doesn't seem to bother me as much as the snow. Like I would much rather drive in the rain
Yeah.
than in the snow unless it's raining so hard that like my windshield wipers aren't going fast enough. And right now, if you're watching, Joe, please change my windshield wipers that I've asked you to do like 40 times. Not actually. I've asked you once. So if you're watching this, because I know you always do watch it, please change them.
Nice.
Because they don't actually like squeegee my windshield. So they leave like a film of water. And then when I'm especially at night and it's like the headlights are shining on it, it's just like this like twinkling. It's
Yeah,
horrible. So
I know.
I don't yeah.
I have the same. I have like dodgy windscreen wipers, and it was pissing down with rain, like torrential. And I was like, man, this is not. And then you get people like dickheads that are like tailgating you. I'm like, bro, I'm going an appropriate speed here. Like,
I
stop, head
know.
off my ass. Can you? I can't see out the window. I'm also driving with hand controls. Just back
Do
off.
you ever get like stressed out when somebody's behind you and feel like you have to go faster? Like I
No,
get so stressed out.
I purposely slow down. I'm like, look, I'll even pull over and be like, look, go past me. I'm like, you're stressing me out. You're driving too close.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, I hadn't planned on talking about this. It's just kind of funny because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just like, yeah. Gonna need to take some deep breaths.
Okay,
But yeah,
well, you made it.
looking at the comments, we've got New Zealand in the house, Argentina, Winnipeg. We have got a lot of different countries tuning in. So hello, everybody.
I'm always like, if New Zealand, I'm like, what time is it there?
Good question.
Oh,
Probably early in the
actually, it's
morning, I
not.
think.
It might not be that bad because like I've done things with my friend in Australia, and we are eight hours apart, I think. Well, how
The
far are
thing
we
is,
apart?
Australia has about 5 different time zones. It's an enormous
Oh,
country.
really? Okay, well, Canada has 5 different time zones too, but I never think of it's 5 a.m. Oh
There
my
you go.
god. Whenever I see people like that, I'm like, you must really love us. Like, who's getting up at 5 a.m. to listen to my inarticulate asshole talk? I don't know. It's just I'm terrible. But
There you go.
somebody wants to listen to me, so okay.
Right then,
Um,
weird comments and awkward
yeah.
high fives.
Let's
You chose the title. Let me know what's wagwan with the
yeah, yeah,
with the
yeah.
title.
Okay, so I've had like the craziest week. I had so much stuff going on and I wrote down like all the stuff I did. But one of the funnest things that I did this week was go to my friend's birthday party. And I was like totally not like negative about the birthday party, because I wanted to go, but it starts at 8 it started at 8:30 at night. And 8:30 at night for me is like bedtime. So
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I have to go to this birthday party. And I'm like, I'm excited to go to the birthday party. So I go, and then I tell Jamie, I'm like, I'm gonna be home at 10:30, the latest. I'm like, I'm not staying very late. So I get
Oh,
there and I'm chatting away with people and I start having fun. Not even sitting with my friend whose birthday it is. I sat with his other friends because he had a massive, massive birthday. Well, not massive, but in my terms, massive. There's probably like 20 people there, 25 maybe. I don't know. I can't even really think about how many people were there, but it was a lot. And so I was sitting with these people that I didn't know very well, and that's my jam. I love talking to people, getting to know people. And so I was having fun. And then at the end of the dinner, we were going to go to this bar. And I was like, ugh, bar's not really my thing. But I felt, I should go. It's his birthday. I'm here. And so then we went to this bar, and before we went in, the bouncer was like, just so you know, it's really busy in there. And then we get in there and it's really busy in there. And so we're really like trying to wheel through this like mob of like drunk people because it's midnight by the time we even get to the bar. And all I could like think of was like, oh, this is like the worst memories of like my university era where I'm trying to like wheel through butts and, you know, balls, and it's horrible. And so I was like, this is going to be terrible. But we got to like a corner, we sat for a bit, and then my friend whose birthday it was, he was like, let's make it to the dance floor. And I'm like, okay, fine, let's go to the dance floor. And there ended up being a live band. So it was like super fun. I loved all the music. I was like singing at the top of my lungs. And my friend Brian was there, my friend Ronil, whose birthday it was, and then my other friend Danielle. And so it was 4 wheelchairs, and it was really crowded. Yeah, 4 wheelchairs. There was a lot more like at the actual like supper, and I'll tell you about that story too. We annoyed the shit out of this waitress because we had so many wheelchairs. Every time she would like try and walk where our table was, she would realize there was all these wheelchairs in the aisle, and she'd be like, oh, can't get through there. So that was pretty funny. But anyway, so we were like this group of wheelchairs, and whenever wheelchairs come out to play, holy man, do able-bodied people get freaked out. Like people are just like, is this a group home? Like, are they out on a pass? What's happening today? So we were like dancing and stuff. And just, I named it like weird comments and awkward high fives because it's so many drunk people. And everyone's like, I love you. You guys are awesome. Yeah. They're like going by, high fiving us, like fist bumping us.
Oh, I can imagine.
It's so weird. And so I wanted to ask your opinion on like the awkward high fives and the weird things people say. Is it like, does it feel patronizing to you? Because sometimes it feels awesome. Like sometimes people will come up and be like, hey, like, can I buy you a drink? Or like, you know, just like something normal. And then other people are like, I love you guys. Like, this is so awesome that you guys are out. Like, this is great. And you're like, out where? Like, I'm not confined to like a institution or something that they like give me a day pass from. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Why is it so great that I'm out? So anyway, I just want to ask your opinion on the awkward high fives and the weird things people say. And if you want to share some of the weird things people say, then do it.
Great conversation. Great conversation. I love this so much. I knew that I wrote down in my journal this morning. In fact, I've got it right here. I was like, I can't wait because Brittany's probably got something amazing to share. So yeah, this is a great conversation. I haven't had that often because I haven't been out like with a group. I don't really have a group of friends in wheelchairs, but I know what it's like going out on my own, and I know what it's like when you get drunk people just being like, oh my God, what's up, bro? Yeah. And they're like trying to high five you for no reason just because you're in a wheelchair. I can only imagine what it would be like having a group of you and the comments you get like, oh, what, you guys having a day out, you know, a day out from the care center or something like that. And like I think when people like drunk people in general, like, especially if you don't drink, they just get this kind of bravado, like they have no filter, and their inner monologue just comes out, and they're like, yeah, oh my God, yeah. And so in a way it's kind of adorable that they because it's mostly positive, but it's well, in fact it's almost exclusively always positive, but it's also awkward, isn't it? It's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, we're here, but like, you know, leave us alone. But yeah. So how did you deal with it?
I mostly just gave awkward high fives and like fist bumps, but because I never think anybody's mean when they do it. And I came home and I was telling Joe about it the next day, and he was like, well, it's better that they're being like that instead of being like, get out of here, you're in the way. And I'm like, yeah, that's way better. I would never want somebody to be mean to me because I'm in a wheelchair or tell me to get out of the bar because I'm like cramping their style or something. But it's just funny to me that the things that people think are like normal to say to somebody, like you would never just go up to another person in a bar ever and be like, I love that you came out tonight, like it's so awesome, like just fist bump. They're like, okay, great. So yeah, I thought it was funny. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring up here is because remember, like last week we talked about are people in wheelchairs attractive, and a bunch of people commented on the video after that it's easier, much easier for women in wheelchairs. Like this one guy was saying that every time he goes out, his friends that are women in wheelchairs get hit on and he gets nothing. And so I thought it was hilarious that the only person to get hit on when we went to the bar was a male friend in a wheelchair. And he had multiple like women come up to him. And I was just like, God, like what is happening? But he's very charismatic and good looking. So it wasn't a surprise to me, but I just thought it was really funny that it totally went against like all of the comments on that video. So I definitely think that there's like some people just have like an energy, because he wasn't even saying anything. He was just sitting there like dancing and stuff, but he's got rhythm. He's good looking. Brian, if you're watching, I'm talking about you because he's supposed to be watching. I sent him the link. If you're not watching, what are you doing, buddy? But anyway, so it was just really funny that he was the only one that got hit on. And I was a little offended. I mean, I'm sitting right beside Brian. I think I've got game, but I didn't get hit on once.
Oh, nice. Well, that is interesting. We had that conversation before, and you said it was probably easier being a woman in a wheelchair. Because I know we mentioned it last week, because traditional masculine roles, you know, a man is going to be sort of big and sort of caregiver, protector, and women are sort of dainty, and we spoke about devotees. So yeah, it's interesting that Brian got hit on. He must have a lot of riz, and he must be a very charming chap. But yeah, it's an interesting. I wanted to go back and say, what sort of weird comments did you get from the crowd of people? Did you get any like zingers that were actually funny?
I'm trying to think of like specific comments. No specific comments, but there is a really funny story that's not like directly related, but it is like sort of along the lines of what we're talking about. There was another guy in a wheelchair there, and he was not with our group. He wasn't with our group at all. And then a friend of a friend's brother ended up being there. And so he was talking to us, and this other guy in a wheelchair just happened to be sort of like near our group. And then all of a sudden, the guy who was talking to us, he like turns around and he like introduces himself to this other guy in a wheelchair who's not with us. He's like, "Hey, buddy, like I'm this guy." Like he's telling him his name and assuming that he's with us because he's in a wheelchair. And I was like, "He's not with us, just so you know." And he's like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, buddy. I just assumed you were with my other friends." It was so funny because it's like, you know, in his mind, all the wheelchairs, they fit together. One of these things is like the others. I gotta introduce myself to this guy who must be their friend. And then this guy in a wheelchair ended up just like sort of like inching his way towards us and like hanging out with us. Because you know, why not? But it was really fun. Yeah, totally.
I'd be like, who are those cool wheelies that are having all the fun? Like, hey guys.
I know. And then he ended up being on like my friend's sledge hockey team, and he just like never comes to practice. So she's like, "What the hell, man? Like, why don't you ever come to practice?" So it ended up that he did kind of know some of the people there, but it was hilarious when the friend of a friend introduced himself to this random guy in a wheelchair just because he had wheels. It was so funny.
Yeah, but when I see people in wheelchairs, I always introduce myself. Well, I say that with a caveat, like not just any old wheelchair. If it's like an old person being pushed in a wheelchair, I'm not going to be like, "Hey, what up?" You know, "What up, my funk soul brother?" You know, like it's not really the same, is it? But if I do see someone in a manual wheelchair that like is pushing, I'm definitely like, "Oh, hey, how's it going?" You know, like just yeah, I like it. Well, I guess it's kind of like, well, I used to ride a motorbike, and when you're on a motorbike, you like nod to the other motorcyclists, and every now and then they won't nod back, and you're like, "Oh, what a dick."
Oh yeah.
So I've seen someone in a wheelchair and I've like nodded to them and they've just blanked me, and I'm like, "Oh no, like what?" It's really weird. But yeah,
or even worse, where they're like, you can tell they're like, don't look at me, don't talk to me. Like where they're like embarrassed that you're saying hi. But that used to be me. I used to be like, "Oh my God, we're not friends. We're not in the same group. Don't talk to me. Don't look at me." And now I'm like, I go out of my way to be like, "Hey, what's up? I haven't seen you before in my grocery store. Like, why are you here? Do you live here?" Like, and people are just like, "I'm just getting groceries. Thanks." So I'm the weird person.
Let's explore that further. Why did you not like other wheelchair users looking at you or like acknowledging you?
I think it ultimately came down to me feeling really awkward about being in a wheelchair. And I felt very awkward and conspicuous and self-conscious about it. So I felt like if somebody else in a wheelchair was noticing me, then it was gonna like confirm that I'm in a wheelchair too. Like it was a really weird mindset thing. And I also just was like I felt like just because you're in a wheelchair and I'm in a wheelchair doesn't mean we have anything in common. Like I was really weird like that. And now I'm still like that a little bit. Like I have lots of friends in wheelchairs. And I've come to know that just because you're in a wheelchair doesn't mean I have anything in common with you. And there's some people that will, try and hang on to a friendship just because you're in a wheelchair and you're like, no, like I don't really like you. Sorry. And it's not like a mean thing. It's just like we don't click. So
yeah, I get that. I feel like I'm living in a bubble, man. I really wish I knew more people in wheelchairs. I think I told you when I was in Southampton, I saw a guy in a wheelchair. His name was Jay. I think he listens to the podcast actually. What up, Jay? And I was like, hey man, nice wheels. And I just opened up with that, and he was like, oh hey. And then I just started chatting to him immediately. He was walking his dog, and it was just lovely, and we stayed in touch. But I don't know. I feel like I can relate to what you said. Like early on, when I was insecure in my wheelchair, when I wasn't, the wheelchair guy, when I hadn't fully embraced the identity, when I saw other people in wheelchairs, I was like, nah, mate, sorry, I'm not part of your disabled crew. I don't. Well, I guess I am, but like, I don't know. I see what you mean. But now I've had such a change of heart. Like now I'm like, trying to, because I feel like there's especially with spinal cord injuries, I know that people use wheelchairs for all different reasons, but with spinal cord injuries there's a real catalyst for connection. I'm like, oh hey, oh what level are you? Oh yeah, like, oh me too. And so it's kind of, it's interesting. But yeah,
I think I really enjoy talking to other people in wheelchairs now. I feel not sad, like it's not sad that you are one of the only ones in a wheelchair like in your area. But I definitely feel like my life is better with a lot of friends in wheelchairs. And it's so fun going out to places with a bunch of people in wheelchairs. Like we go to like the mall or something here, and there were like 5 people in wheelchairs, and we hang on to somebody in the front who's got like a power chair, and we're like literally like a train, and we're like getting like yanked around the mall, and people are all like, whoa, like laughing at us. And it's just really fun to have friends in wheelchairs. And
that sounds fun.
I love being conspicuous with other people. So yeah, when we went out for dinner, I think there was 6 people in wheelchairs. And there was a lot of able-bodied people too, but it's so much better when there's people that, you fit with, and you feel like you have something that you can relate to on deeper levels than what you can with an able-bodied person that doesn't really understand your circumstances. So yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah. So I think I've told this before, but I'll tell it again. I saw a guy in a wheelchair last winter, and he was in a wheelchair that looked like mine. And again, most people I see in wheelchairs around here, they're old. They don't look like me. This guy was like young, buff, wheelchair looked like mine. And I was like, I drove past him. I was like, what the hell? I was like, right, spun the car around, drove straight back, pulled over, and I was like, hey, hello, do you speak English? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh, hey, man. And I'm in my car, right? So this is a bit weird, but I was like, I'm in a wheelchair too. I mean, like, not right now I'm in a wheelchair, but like, I use a wheelchair too, man. What's your name? My name's Fred. It was so weird. And he was like, my name's Craig. And like, he crossed the road. He came and spoke to me. He was with some other people, but I was a bit, like, in hindsight, I felt a little bit self-conscious that I was a bit too keen. Like, all right, mate, calm down. Like, I literally spun the car around, like just drove up next to him. And I was like, yo. And I just wanted to know, like, are you here on holiday? Do you live here? Like, do you want to be friends? And and the guy was like, I was like, oh, do you have Instagram? And he's like, I don't have social media. I don't know if he just said that because he's like, this guy's weird. I'm not going to give you my Instagram. But he was like, nah, but I've got like WhatsApp. You can message me. And it's kind of weird. Like, social media, through all its flaws, if you become friends on Facebook, then that's like, you kind of get to know each other after you've met. But with just a WhatsApp, I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to message that guy. Like, hey, Craig, what's up? Do you remember me? I was the Kino that that tracked you down that one time.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was here skiing, and he was surprised that I didn't ski. And I just felt like I really wanted to chat to him. I was like, hey, there's a guy in a wheelchair that looks like me. So yeah, after my initial burst of excitement, it was that's what I'm like when I see other people in wheelchairs.
I definitely have freaked people out a few times, and because I am involved with the rehab hospital here, and I teach like the returning to the community class to like newly injured people, then I'll meet people, and sometimes I'm like, I am overwhelming to them. I think like this one new guy that I met last month, I messaged him like a bunch, and I was like, you need to meet my friends, and he stopped messaging me. He was just like, get out of here. So I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna message you anymore. And that's okay. Like, that's totally okay. Because I would have been like that too. And I was like that at first. Like, people would try and talk to me, and I would just be like, I just wasn't ready for it. So I think everybody has their own journey. But oh, somebody's asking, this is a good question that's related to this. Sorry. Hi, Brittany. Does your husband Joe connect with your wheelchair friends? You know what? Not at first. It was a really long time before he even like hung out anywhere with any of my friends in wheelchairs. And now he's got like good relationships with my friends. Like, he's really good friends with my friend Brian, and he's my other guy friends in wheelchairs, not girlfriends in wheelchairs. He likes them too, and he'll hang out with them, but he's like bros out with some of the guys in wheelchairs. But that's more of a personality thing. Like, I think it was just like with me, he had to get to know the person in the wheelchair, and then the wheelchair didn't matter anymore. But yeah, he definitely did not, come to a lot of wheelchair events with me when I was first starting to make lots of friends in wheelchairs, because he was just like, I don't know, why do I have to go to the wheelchair things? And now he's just like, everything is a wheelchair thing, so I guess I have to go.
Yeah, there you go. That's nice. Talking about wheelchair things, I've been back at rehab, so I'm sort of, there are a lot of people in wheelchairs there, but they're not the sort of people, like I said, that I'm excited to meet. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but they're just old and frail, and they're getting pushed around. And I'm like, oh, hey.
It's a different demographic.
Yeah, right. It's massively different. And also, like, so I wanted to talk about this. I've been back at rehab now for a couple of days since the last live stream, and it's been great. Like, I've had a lot of mixed feelings. Like, so just to recap for those who missed it, like, I'm weaning off baclofen, which is a spasm medication. I'm getting a lot of physiotherapy. I'm getting a lot of other help, and some of it has been great. It's been really, really fun. I think I realized on the way home that it was negatively tinged from just one thing that happened before I left, and then the drive home, which really sucked. But on the whole, it was really great. So I was really looking forward to going today. I actually took some videos, but I didn't have time to like upload them or anything. But number one, I had physio with my friend Dominic. He was the physio that I first got introduced to, like, after my injury. Absolute legend. Absolutely love him. Absolutely great. Also, he watched the podcast. He listened to the podcast. So, which is so lovely. Such a lovely, kind thing. Like, I told him about it last Tuesday, and then when I saw him on Thursday, he was like, "Oh yeah, I listened to it." I was like, "No way, really?" He's like, "Yeah, you said it was Wheel Talk. I tracked it down on Spotify and I listened to it. I thought it was great." And I was like, "Oh, that's so cool, man. Thank you so much." So he's a lovely guy. And we were going through some different stretches that I could do to manage my spasms. I showed him the ones that I knew, and he was like, "These are the ones." Tweaks, there wasn't nothing groundbreaking, but tweaks like, this one's good, but it's not really getting all of your calf muscle and your hamstring. If you just did it like this and used a strap, you can get a much better stretch. And through stretching, it's not like a cure-all. It's like a band-aid. If you've got bad spasms, you have to stretch like 2 or 3 times a day, really. And which is kind of, I knew that anyway, but it's a little disheartening because you're like, oh, so if I wean off baclofen, my spasms are going to be worse. I'm going to have to stretch more. It's kind of obvious, but I kind of wanted a lazier solution. I'm like, oh, I thought it was just going to be, anyway. So it's just a hell of a lot more stretching. And that was really good. I love chatting with Dominic. I love like doing the stretching. He showed me loads of different cool things. Again, I really wanted to share them here, but I didn't have time to edit the video together. But yeah, lots of back stretching and also sort of dynamic stretching that really helped. And then I went to see the occupational therapist, which helped me with the admin, applying for different things like we spoke about last week, like more disability help. And then I went to do the adaptive physical activity, which was really cool because it was just a hand cycle, but he put it on this really progressive, hard level. And I was like going like really hard. And he was really impressed. He said, "Oh, this is amazing. Actually, like no one's ever got to that level before. Like you're really good." But there was a really frail man next to me, like doing it. And I was like, well, there's not much competition around here, is there? And I felt really bad saying it, but it was an obvious joke. And I was like, yeah. But anyway, so all of that was really, really cool. And then I did balneotherapy, which is in the swimming pool. But I guess what happened was there was just a really odd thing that happened is they put me in a chair that like, so I had to transfer into another chair, and it made me realize how capable I am in my wheelchair. Like I feel so confident I can go anywhere. But you put me in a different chair that doesn't have wheels, that I can't self-propel, I'm screwed.
Horrible.
I'm absolutely screwed. And it was really uncomfortable. It had a plastic seat, and I had to be pushed around, and it just really just took away my autonomy so much so that it felt like a huge step backwards. And I remember in my early days of rehab when I couldn't transfer onto the toilet, you know, those big chairs with the kind of like the hole in that sort of go over the commode on wheels, basically.
Yeah.
I would transfer onto the commode, and I would push myself like using the walls and the doors, and I'd push myself around my little room to get over onto the toilet. And it reminded me of that. Like, and obviously I built up those skills in early rehab. So I was kind of trying to push myself around, but it made me feel really helpless. And then something happened with my foot, which, if I can explain it, my foot just fell awkwardly, hit like a bar, but then spasmed. So it kicked the bar, which made it like 10 times worse. So my foot really hurt. My spasms got really bad. And it just made me feel so much more disabled. And it highlighted the fact that like I do live in a comfort bubble, and I've got a decent wheelchair, and my wheelchair is everything to me. It is the reason why I'm so autonomous and so independent. And you put me in a different wheelchair, even one that I can self-propel, but it's like big and awkward and plastic. It just, I don't know, it just made me feel a bit awkward. And then the swimming pool, again, it was great. Like I don't want this to sound ungrateful, because I'm really grateful that I do get to go in the swimming pool, but it wasn't quite the same as just going to the swimming pool on my own, where I can like get in the pool, get out the pool. I had to like transfer into 2 different plastic chairs, one that was like lowered down, and it kind of, when that autonomy is taken away from you, you feel more disabled. That's why it felt like a step backwards. And I was like, I've been injured for 5 years. Like, why am I, do you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I had a really good time at rehab, but it also sucked a little bit at the end, because like my leg was hurting, my legs got spazzy, transferring onto all these hard plastic surfaces to try and get my clothes on really awkwardly, when normally I get dressed very quickly, just felt a little bit poo. And then on top of that, a terrible drive home in the rain. And I was just like really grumpy when I got home.
Yeah. I think that that like what you're talking about right now highlights the fact that rehab really doesn't get you where you want to go. Like it's a really great starting point, and it is a really good tool to start to think about new things that you might want to do. Like you say, like the stretching routine or whatever, but always you're going to make the stretching routine better than the one that they're giving you. You're going to make whatever it is that you want to do better than what they're going to be able to teach you, because they can't go through, multiple iterations of, the task in rehab. Like it's just not possible, because you're only there for a limited amount of time, and they only have so much experience with people in wheelchairs. Whereas you have experience with yourself every single day, and you can try new things, and you might not really even understand what you're doing to make things better, or know how you're doing it better, or why. You just will be doing it better as long as you keep doing it. Right. So I always say, like, I really learned very little in rehab. Like I learned what I needed to do, but how I needed to do it, I didn't learn at rehab at all. So I think it's just another one of those confirmations, and it's more eye-opening as you've gotten more experience in a wheelchair, that rehab is only effective, to a degree.
Yeah. Well, I I'd say that the stretching was actually really good. So yeah, I do stretch myself, but the tips that Dominic gave me were really helpful. But yeah, and I guess that's just, and I don't want to sound, again, I really don't want to sound ungrateful, because last time I was saying how wonderful it is, and how other countries don't have the facilities, or like I guess the funding to be able to do that and send me back to rehab. But so I'm in two minds of like, I really don't want it to sound ungrateful, but it does just feel like, after you've been injured for 5 years and you've got your life together, to go back to that place where you first got injured, and sort of there's a clunkiness about, doing stuff. And I'm more used to doing things fluidly. That just annoyed me a little bit. But again, like the physical activities were really good. The occupational therapy was really handy. The physiotherapy was really welcome, and I love Dominic. He's a great guy. Just the swimming, I think the lady wasn't. She was new. Like I'd never done it with her before, so she was just like. So when my leg spasmed and hit the bar, she was like, "Oh, let me grab that for you," and I was like, "No. Like I need to wait for the spasm to like release, but like I can't just like wrestle my rigid leg." So yeah, she was just a little bit, I guess, inexperienced, and I don't know. It was just, and also, like I said to you before, like I'm meant to be getting a taxi to and from rehab, which is amazing, absolutely great, right? But I called the taxi company and they were full. They were like, "Yeah, we're not taking any new patients." So I tried 3 other taxi companies, and they were all like, "Nah, we can't do that. We can't do that." Yeah, so I was like, "Oh, okay." So I've got to drive myself, which again, it sounds, I don't want to sound entitled, because I know people drive to and from work in the rain all the time, but I don't like driving in the rain, and it was stressful. So having like driven all the way there and then driven all the way back, it's not really quite the same as getting picked up in a taxi. And again, I know that sounds really entitled, like, "Oh, you expect to be picked up in a taxi," but that was meant to be part of the deal. That was part of the deal before. So driving in the rain and then having that experience, just like, I guess, put a negative tinge on it. So I've come home and I'm like, I've got mixed feelings. I've got mixed feelings about rehab. So yeah.
I think it's okay to have like the this is this and that, kind of experience. Cause I think that's life in a wheelchair in general, or life entirely is like that. There's no like this experience was entirely bad, or this experience is entirely great. So I think it's just normal to have mixed feelings in situations where you experience some stuff that was kind of shit and some stuff that was like awesome. And I think that's part of, the whole gratitude thing that you do, is seeing that this was really great, but then also being like, you know what, like this wasn't my favorite. And if we didn't, accept some of the things that were not necessarily the greatest, we would never be able to give people feedback. And not that there was anything at this like particular rehab experience that you would be able to give them feedback on, but just for your own sort of like emotional well-being and like that curiosity sort of piece that you can have that allows you to go, like, why did this bother me so much? And then, tease it out for yourself. So I think it's okay to acknowledge some of those things. And it's really hard to like not take on the guilt and shame. I was going to say gain, guilt and shame at the same time. But when you have like the gratitude for things, you often can sort of feel shameful for acknowledging some of the things. Like you say, like, I don't want to sound entitled, but this is what happened. And I personally have like a pet peeve with that. Like if we complain about anything and we're talking about something, like I was reading a thing on TikTok, like a comment on TikTok, and somebody was like, "How dare you complain about this? There's people at war right now in other countries." And I'm like, okay, like I get that point of view. Like I get that we should acknowledge that we are very privileged to live in areas that are peaceful and safe and all that. But we also don't have to never complain about the things that are happening directly to us. Because after all, this is the only experience that we get to have in life. And it's, all relative based on what the goods and bads and the highs and lows of our situation are. So yeah. So don't feel bad about, or don't feel like you're, sounding entitled or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I just realized that a lot of people don't have access to that amount of rehab, but I guess what I'm trying to say is it's amazing, but 5 years on, it just feels some of it's good, some of it's bad. I guess it's just like life. One of the things I did want to talk about is that I've taken my baclofen down from 120 milligrams a day to 90 milligrams a day.
Oh, that's a
And
lot.
yeah, so it's
That was really
almost
fast.
yeah, so it's almost a quarter, 25%, or maybe 20%. So, and I haven't noticed a huge amount of increase in the spasticity, which is great. I spoke to Dominic today and he said, that's amazing. He said, you've taken off 30 milligrams a day and you haven't noticed much. And I said, I know, like sometimes my spasms are really bad when I'm on loads of baclofen, and sometimes my spasms are, when I take less. I don't know. When my spasms, there's no, what am I trying to say? I can't, sometimes my spasms are bad and I have no idea why. Sometimes my spasms are calm and I have no idea why. Sometimes I'm like thinking, maybe it's because I've exercised a lot, I've stretched a lot. Sometimes I've not exercised and I've not stretched and they're really calm. Sometimes I've exercised and stretched and they're like really rigid and they're really spazzy. It baffles me. So I'm like, I don't know what it is. And he just said, it's just part of having a spinal cord injury. It's just part of the damage, like just mixed signals. They're just sending mixed signals down there. So, but he said it's really good that you've taken, 30 milligrams a day off of your baclofen intake and you haven't noticed that much. He said that's really, really positive. I also reached out to some people on spinal cord injury Facebook pages with mixed responses. Someone said, oh, I've weaned down from 100 milligrams a day to 10 milligrams a day.
Yeah.
And it's brilliant. Someone said they weaned down from 120 to completely off and their spasms were so wild. He was like, oh, I now realize why I take baclofen and how effective it was. So he's gone back to taking it. So I don't know. I'm on the journey. I'm really excited to share it with you guys as it continues. But so far, 30 milligrams a day less, which is quite a lot if you think about it over a week. That's quite a lot less baclofen. And so far, so good. I've been doing stretches and keeping healthy, and fingers crossed we can take it a bit further.
Yeah, I agree with the sentiment that you can't figure out your spinal cord injury, because sometimes I pee my pants a lot and sometimes I don't pee my pants at all. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why am I peeing my pants right now? And I was doing my period tracking and like doing all these things to try and figure out if it was like, if it was estrogen or like it was. And then I like went to the doctor and she was just like, no, it's just random signals. Sometimes you're like, oh, I'm going to pee my pants right now because I feel like it, and you're, so it's annoying. So
that was the other thing. Real quick, just on that note, that was the other thing I forgot to mention. But on the drive home, not only was all of that other things happening, I needed a wee, and I was like, oh my god, I'm gonna wee myself. And I'm so close to home. I was like, I could just pull over and do one, but I'm like, I'm good. And then I was like, oh god, I think I've gone, and I could feel it. It was warm. I was like, oh no, I've weed in my pants. Oh, for God's sake! And that's how stressed I was. But anyway, I felt something warm. Convinced myself that I'd pissed myself, and I was like, God damn it, now I've pissed myself. I'll have a shitty afternoon with a side order of piss, thanks. And I was like, oh no. So I got home and then I was like, oh, I didn't piss myself. I don't know what I felt, but I was like, oh, my pants are clean, and I made it. So I did a catheter and it was an enormous wee. And the other thing that annoyed me was I went for a wee before I left, and I was like, I've been in the car for like half an hour. How can I possibly need another wee? And I looked at the catheter and I was like, I haven't drunk that much liquid. Where's it come from? So that was the other thing that was stressing me out, like driving while needing a wee.
This is extremely funny to me because your bladder is sometimes so unpredictable, and I'll like try and time like when I'm drinking or what I'm drinking so that if I have something important, and then inevitably every time I'm like 20 minutes into something and I'm like, fuck, I have to pee. And it's like horrible. But I do think that like our brain can like manufacture like a warm, wet feeling when we feel like we're going to pee our pants. Cause I do that all the time. I'm like, oh my God, I can feel it. And then I'm like totally dry. But that just was really funny to me for some reason when you were describing that. There was a couple other things on here that I wanted to talk about because I just did this video for a brand that asked me if I would like review. It's like a lift chair, but you can use it for anything. But I used it to review a bath, which went pretty terribly. And I realized that like baths and like water in general, is very uncomfortable for me because like I float so much, like my like butt was literally floating up in the tub, like it wouldn't stay down.
What?
And so I'm like, I know it's so I'm like sitting there in the tub. I'm like holding my body, trying to hold my body down in the tub. And so I wanted to bring up the conversation, like, what have you unintentionally given up as a wheelchair user because of the inconvenience? Like, it's just too inconvenient to do, not because it's not possible to do. It's just that you don't do it. So like, I literally haven't bathed in like 25 years just
No way.
because, yeah, I just never bathed. Like, I just never learned to get myself in and out of the tub. And I probably could. It just takes more time and effort. And my tailbone is really sharp. So I don't want to be on the hard tub. So there's just like all these things that I'm like, it's not worth the effort. And then I got this bath chair to review because I was like, I'll review it and see if I actually like the bath, and it might be helpful to other people who are like me, who have never bathed and is like, oh, should I buy one of these things? But it ended up being like not very good. And I said to the company, I'm like, as long as I can do an honest review, which I totally did, I was like, I probably would never use this thing again. And they were like, great video. So I was like, okay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they were really happy with it. But I just wanted to ask you, like, is bathing too inconvenient for you, or do you do it?
Well, that's a great question. It depends what type of bathtub. So I was in a Holiday Inn, I think it was, or a Premier Inn. It was a hotel of sorts.
Yeah.
When I was in the UK, and they had a bathtub, and at first I was like, "What the hell, man? I'm in a wheelchair. I wanted a roll-in shower." And they were like, "Oh, it's a lowered tub." And I'm like, "What am I supposed to do?" Until I realized, like, I'm not an idiot. I can get in the bathtub.
Yeah.
I can transfer in and out. But not all people could do that. Like you said, you struggle with the tub. So
No.
at first of all, I was annoyed. But this bathtub was shallow and long, so it took like 2 seconds to fill up. And warm water, it was so good for my spasms, unbelievable. So if I could get in the bathtub and lay down in the hot water, I could do some stretching. It was so nice. I could get in and out of it really, really well, and I loved it. I absolutely loved it because it was quick, it was easy, it was long enough for me to get in. My bathtub is not long enough that I can lay down in it, and it's big and wide, so it takes it's like ages to fill up. So it's like a hell of a lot of water. It feels like a bit of a waste, and so I guess the answer is depends on what bathtub. My bathtub here, I've used it a handful of times since I've lived here in 5 years. I always just sit. I've got a plank that goes across the tub, and I sit on it to shower. I've very rarely used the bathtub, but when I was in that Holiday Inn, oh my God, I loved the tub. It was like, again, you can fill it up like that, get in, get out. It was brilliant. So my answer is depends on the tub.
Yeah. You don't have a problem with like, you've only been paralyzed for like 5 years. So you probably have fat on your butt still. Do you?
I've said this before, but the gift and the curse of a lot of spasticity is I haven't lost much muscle mass on my legs. I mean, I've lost some, but like my legs don't look like your average atrophied paraplegic's legs. But my bum, I don't have much muscle on my bum. It's a very bony bum. So I like to put a folded up towel underneath. Also, like because I have an incomplete injury, I've got sensation, which is such a gift, because it, like if you well, I don't know if you have sensation. So if you don't, just sit on a hard surface. Don't know if you're going to get a pressure sore. Me, I know exactly when it's really, really uncomfortable, and I'm like, no, I cannot sit on this. I'm going to get a pressure sore. And my legs spasm, which gives me a feedback that like there's pressure there. So yeah, I mean, I put a rolled up towel. I even sit on a rolled up towel on my shower bench when I shower, so just to soften it a little bit. But yeah,
I have a thing called an action gel pad, which is like a gel cube thingy that's like squishy. So I normally put that down on my shower chair, and I did put that like on the the lift chair thing when I went in the tub, and I would put it in the tub, but just that was like sliding on the bottom of the tub. So it just it doesn't seem like it's worth it to me. But I don't know what is with my like floating body, and it's like some funny comments here with this one. I'm not sure. Velcro like around my legs. I'm not sure how Velcro is stick in the bathtub, but yeah. Anyway, the whole butt thing, I always like laugh because Joe always says, I'm not sure if you have no butt crack or all butt crack, because like It's just like, it's like goes in and then like curves out, but I don't have like butt cheeks to close in what used to be like a enclosed butt crack. So it just looks like a shelf, a butt shelf, which is like really funny. And nobody wants to ever see that. I promise you, my butt is the least attractive thing ever. It's really funny, but
there you go.
It's all butt crack or no butt crack. I'm not really sure. You guys can put in the comments whether you think butt cracks are a thing when you're in a wheelchair or not. I don't know.
So how does the lift work? I think I know how it works. So like I guess it's like a platform you transfer onto and then it goes down into the tub.
Yeah. It's just like it's exactly like it's a platform that's like a scissor lift essentially, and it's quiet and it has a backrest on it that like can tilt back. And I kind of had to wrangle it in the tub myself because nobody was home, which is kind of heavy, but I just kept like lifting it end over end and then I got it in the tub. And it has suctions on the bottom, and then it has a electric remote, which at first I was like, this thing's super far away from the tub. How am I going to plug it in while I'm using it? And then I was like, you know what? They probably don't need you to plug it in while you're filling the tub with water, because that would be an electrocution risk. That wouldn't be safe. So then I figured out that the remote is like a chargeable remote that you like plug into this like watertight thingy and it works. But I'm so dumb sometimes. Like I'm so dumb. I was like, my plug-in is so far away from the tub. Like this is so ridiculous. And then I was like, I don't have to plug it in. I'm so dumb.
So what is it like? Do you have to charge it up then?
Yeah, you have to charge the remote. Just the remote.
Oh, right, got you.
Yeah, so the remote plugs into the wall. You detach the remote from the chair and then plug it into the charger, and then it charges up, and then you plug it back into the chair. But I will keep the chair because it is good. Like if I lose my strength, like to get on and off the floor, like it goes right down to the floor and it goes up to like pretty high heights, like in terms of like if I needed to get onto a couch or something like that. So I just have it like in my closet. Like it's like maybe like 2.5 feet by like 1.5 feet. And so it just like folds up, and I have it in my closet right now. But yeah, I was like a little annoyed at the company because they wouldn't give me I always like to try and give one to people. So I was like, if you're going to give me one to try, I want you to give somebody else one so I can give it away or give somebody a free one. And they wouldn't do it. So I was like, I'm like a little annoyed at that, but they did give me 10% off discount.
You could give yours away if you.
I totally thought about that. If
you're not going to use it.
I was absolutely going to do that, but then I was like, how much is this going to cost to ship? Because I was like, it's probably the amount that it would cost to ship is probably going to be the amount that the chair costs. Like it was like on sale, it's like $3.99, and I was like, it would cost me $50 to ship like a tiny box in Canada. So I'm like, the shipping would probably be crazy, but I thought it was okay. I probably will never use it like a lot, but I just was curious about the whole bath thing.
We have a question from Benjamin. Speaking of butt cracks, do you guys have trouble with your trousers falling down all the time? Drives me insane. I wear a belt, but physics is always against my butt crack. No, I don't have that problem. Do you?
I don't really, because I wear mostly high-waisted pants, but my friend Brian, if you're watching, he's always got his ass crack hanging out. Half the time, I'm not joking, and he knows this. So if you're watching Brian, like I'm sure you know this. Like half the time when we're just like hanging out somewhere, his pants are literally like halfway off his ass, and his underwear stay up. But I'm like, dude, pull your pants up. But he's always moving around. Like he moves around a lot. He's bending over, picking stuff up. Like he fixes cars. He does all kinds of stuff. So it's mostly just like when he's busy doing stuff, and then he's like, oh shit, my pants are halfway off. But I used to have that problem in like the early 2000s when it like was like cool to have like low-waisted pants for all the women that wanted to show their like thong and all that stupid. That whole era was awful. And so you couldn't buy pants that went up high enough in the back.
Interesting. So I 9 times out of 10 I'm wearing joggers just because it's comfy and I don't go out that much. So but I do wear trousers, but I don't have the problem that they fall down, to be honest. I do have like a belt, but it's like an elasticated belt with like a plastic clip. It's quite a trendy one. And it kind of I just don't have that. I don't have that issue. So I can't help you. I can't help you, pal, unless you just want to wear joggers. I don't know. They're comfy.
Yeah.
They stay up. They're not the most fashionable things, but I guess like
Yeah.
normally I'm just going to the gym or the swimming pool or the supermarket or like, you know, the other day I went to a wedding, but and I, you know, I didn't wear joggers there, but like, yeah, I don't know, just I don't know. Yeah, I guess is it can you be fashionable in a wheelchair? I mean, I think you can, but I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
I think
maybe. I
so. Like,
guess
it
it's
depends on the
low
person.
priority.
Yeah, I don't really care about like fashion. I buy most of my clothes at like Goodwill, which is like a thrift store, like for a charity thrift store here. Because I hate shopping. I just hate it. So
Mm.
that's not my thing. But definitely you could be fashionable in a wheelchair. I've got lots of friends that do it. This comment's hilarious. I just want to say my junk is what used to hold my pants in place. Lucky you. Oh my god, that's so funny. I just thought that was hilarious.
That actually gives me reminds me of someone. So there's you probably unfamiliar with it, but some people in the chat probably are familiar with it. But there's an SCI locker room Facebook page, and I think this the ladies have SCI powder room. So it's SCI locker room is men only spinal cord injury chat. And one of the guys, he was like, "Oh, does anyone have a problem with these catheters, these coloplast catheters that like they don't go in far enough, like the tube isn't long enough? It's a 30-centimeter tube." And I was like, "Bro, humble brag. I mean, Jesus, fucking hell. Like,
oh my god.
honestly, mine hangs out like loads, and I'm like, what are you on about? Like, what, like how?" But he was being completely genuinely serious, apparently, and I thought, I just can't.
Oh my god. I have a friend that's in a wheelchair, and like he is not shy about bragging about like the length of his dong and how annoying it is for him in a wheelchair. And so I'm like, I've never once asked him, but I'm immediately gonna text him after this and be like, "Do you have to buy some like special catheters that are like extra long or something?" I've never thought about that. That's a really interesting thing because girls, you know, our urethra is all the same size, but you guys have like sock sizes. They just are different lengths for.
Yeah, but hilarious. I mean, I'm a grower, not a shower. You know, like me and my girlfriend have a laugh at like the change.
Yeah.
Like it goes from like really, really, really small, like it looks like a baby dick, to like a regular big, you know, like it.
Oh
like,
my god, Fred,
it's ridiculous. I know, but it's really, the change is ridiculous. Whereas some people just have like, you know, a big flaccid dong, and then, you know, and it doesn't change that much. Like the change in mine goes from like microscopic to gigantic. Like, well, not gigantic, but you know, like
I don't understand the like the thrill of like having a big dick for a guy. Like I just don't get, like, as a girl, and like for one, like maybe if you just all you want is to have like, you know, intercourse, like then it's might be fine. But I'm like, you're not having fun with blowjobs, because I'm like, a girl's mouth is never getting that far on, like, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, that kind of stuff is just like, it's less fun for you. And like, it's way better to be like the grower, not a shower kind of thing. Because especially if you're in a wheelchair, you're not like worried about like, you know, catching the thing in a transfer or something. And like, I don't know. That just seems funny.
Do you know what? You actually make a really good point there. I think when I was a teenager or growing up, like a young teenager, and I was surrounded by the other boys, like there was this boy, he was like an Indian lad called Eshbar. He had like he looked like a man. And I was like, bro, like, you know, he had a turban, he was a Sikh guy.
Yeah.
He like literally he was growing a beard, and I hadn't even hit puberty yet. And I remember, like, this is going to sound really, really silly. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but I remember like glancing over, like, and I'm being like, Jesus Christ, bro. And like, I was like, that is enormous. That thing is that's a weapon. And I looked down at mine and I was like, oh no. And I remember thinking, like, I was really embarrassed for the longest time, thinking that I had like a very small wiener. But now I realize that having a grower is actually a gift, because it goes like, because when it goes like really small. That's actually really handy because it doesn't get in the way. It's absolutely fine. But when you need it to, it like that's it. I'm ready, right? Whoop. It's like stands to attention. It's like, I'm ready, you know? And I think that is, but yeah, I guess it's not, I can't believe we're talking about this. I apologize, Mum.
Yeah. So I don't know if I think I brought it up. Maybe, I don't know, but I apologize too.
But I do think definitely being in a wheelchair, it's handy because like being sat down all the time, if it was, especially if you couldn't fit a catheter in there, man, that's like, that is a
and
curse.
it's more dangerous. Like not to mention like the risk of like trying to shove a catheter. Like males have strictures, I think they're called. I can't remember what they're called, but they're like where like you scratch the wall of your urethra from trying to get it, navigate it like through your long urethra. And it's worse, I think, if it's longer. But yeah, I've never really understood the whole like I'm so like macho for having a big wiener. And it's so gross as a woman, like when somebody's like in a swimsuit or so, like a guy's in a swimsuit and all you can see, or at the gym and they wear the tights now. I'm like, dude, you just have like a whack of balls and wiener in there. I'm like, I don't want to see that. Like put on some baggy shorts. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's distracting. Like I'm just, whoa. And I'm at that level.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
My eyeballs are right there, which is why I said, like, when I'm in a bar, all I'm like wheeling through is butts and balls. And like, it's just like, no, I don't want that.
Yeah.
So gross. And like, you're in a bar for long enough. You're in like SWAS territory, which is like sweaty balls and ass. And all you smell is the like, ugh, so gross. So yeah, I have like a different attraction level to like people that have big wieners, I think. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just like, no thanks, dude. You keep that thing. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. That was probably way too much information. But
it was. But I tell you what, you did remind me. I actually gave myself urethral trauma once, and I made a very funny video about it. If you guys want to giggle after this, we're going to end soon. There's a video on my channel. I think the thumbnail just says "bleeding from the dick," and there's a picture of like a hot dog sausage or something. It's called "I gave myself urethral trauma." You'll have to scroll back quite far to find it, but it's hilarious. It is so funny. Like it starts off with me in the hospital. I'm in the hospital bed, and I'm like, oh, you know, I. So basically, what happened was I gave myself urethral trauma. I was bleeding from the penis. I couldn't get the catheter in, and I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like I can't wee. I went into to A&E, and there were people around me. Like there were like people screaming and bleeding, and I was like, man, it's gonna take ages for me to get in. It's like you get a ticket, like you're at a deli counter, and I was like, oh God, you know, what am I, 73? And I'm like, oh, they're on 40. I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'm in for a long wait. And I went in and they was like, when was the last time that you urinated? And I was like, oh, yesterday. And they were like, what? They were like, get in there now. And I remember thinking, oh, wicked, I've jumped the queue here. Like thinking that I was really stoked that I didn't have to go back out in the waiting room. And they were like, no, this is really serious. They gave me a
super pubic.
No, they get well, yeah, but they gave me a
ultrasound.
Thank you. And they were like, look how much wee is in you. And it was like almost a liter of wee, I think. So it was like, or more, I can't remember. It was stupid. And they were like, if your wee goes back up into your kidneys, that's really dangerous. And I was like, oh, I had no idea. So yeah, they ended up putting a intermittent catheter in, or a Foley catheter, and I was saying to them, like, I know that like they said I described the symptoms. I had no idea it was called urethral trauma. They were like, you've given yourself urethral trauma. We're going to have to put in an intermittent catheter. And the intermittent catheter is wider. And I was like, with all due respect, like, how are you going to put that tube in when I can't get the thinner tube in? Like, and they were like, don't worry about it. It's fine. And they put some like analgesic gel in there to like numb it. And it's a very funny video. Like I document the entire thing. It's not that long, but if you're after a giggle, like you should go, and if you're watching this and you got like a spare 10 minutes afterwards, go find that video. It's really funny. And then drop me a comment.
That sounds scary. I've had some friends with some really serious outcomes of strictures and like urethral trauma. So yeah, I think having a big wiener as a guy in a wheelchair is probably a liability over the long term, but I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure. I just want to like put this comment out because I thought it was like really funny. He's like, yeah, this is why we're different. Obviously, men and women. I've never complained of a camel toe or a perky nipple. Guys are not complaining about seeing girls like, junk hanging out of their leggings. But
this is also a funny comment. Lots of drinking beer in a bar makes for very
seriously,
smelly farts, which is super bad at our level. Yeah,
it
that is.
really is. It
Yeah.
really is. It's gross. I know. But yeah, I really did have fun at the bar. So my memories of bars was of when I was younger, when a lot of guys used to come up to me and say stupid stuff when I was drinking. So I was less coordinated and, just in control of myself. And when, I don't know, I just, yeah, so it was less fun. And this time I was like, I don't care. I'm with my friends in wheelchairs, and I didn't really care about the dumb comments because, I wasn't trying to look for somebody to like date or anything like that. So I was just like, yeah, whatever, fist bump. I'm going to go back to dancing. And it was pretty fun. But it's one of those nights that like, it's totally not what you expected it to be. And it ends up being way better. That's always fun.
Yeah. Just because I've just become aware of the time. We're past the hour mark, so we're going to bring it home shortly. But a quick question: how do you feel about hugging people in a wheelchair? Because like sometimes when people are like, "Oh, let's," I'm like, "Oh yeah." I mean, like I could just give you a fist bump, man. Like the hug sometimes it's like obviously I want to hug my girlfriend. I want to hug people, but sometimes like, "Hey," and I'm like, "Oh, well, how do you feel about that?"
I hug all my friends in wheelchairs. So it's just like the side hug. Like we go up beside each other, like directly wheel to wheel, and then we like lean into each other like that.
Oh,
So
I meant just in general, not. But that is yeah.
Like just other people. It is really weird hugging in a wheelchair. And every once in a while you get like somebody that's like amazing and does like a full-on squat and then like hugs you straight on. Like Jacob's getting really good at like squatting. A lot of people do like the side hug, but every once in a while you get like the person that's like squats in front of you and then like leans straight forward. And I'm always like, oh, that's like a straight on hug. I'm like, this is the best.
Nice.
But yeah, that's one thing that I kind of miss about like being in a wheelchair is not being able to like hug people standing up, like where you literally get like so close. Joe was saying that the other day when I transferred onto the couch and I laid beside him and I was like hugging him. And then I was talking about whether it's like fun for him to lift me because he gets to be like, carry me, and or if it's like, this is annoying kind of thing. And he said, I think it's nice because like we don't get as much like hugging and like intimate sort of like touch like that just on a daily basis as some other people might be able to get. So it's nice that I get to lift you because that's like an extra special intimate act that I get to do for you. But he's like, yeah, I do miss like the being able to like hug standing up and kind of being able to get closer. So yeah, the side hugs are always kind of awkward. And then there's those people that are just like really weird about the hug and they're just like, where they just kind of like tap you on the back of the shoulders and you're like, it's okay. We don't need to hug.
Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of it. Like, I don't know. Maybe I need a different technique. Like before when I was like stood up, I used to love hugging people, but yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Anyway, before we bring it home, I just wanted to do a little bit of podcast housekeeping. I recorded a podcast this week with Michael Dewsnap. He is a guy who got injured mountain biking. It's a great conversation. He shares his story. He's just a lovely, really cool, down-to-earth guy. Very stoic attitude after his injury, and he's getting on with life. And it's really cool. His son was there when he got injured, and this weekend gone, his son actually just won the 4-cross championship on the bike that his dad got paralyzed on.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I actually saw that and I wanted to watch it, but this week has just been like so crazy to me. But it's one of the ones that I put on my save, watch later or whatever list. So I'm gonna go do that in the car because I have lots of driving to do today. And you reminded me with your like housekeeping thing. So if you guys are not a part of my Patreon and you would like to hang out with me tomorrow, it's game night on my Empowered Para like Zoom hangout. It's for the $10 per month membership Patreons or patrons. I guess you guys are patrons, not Patreons. So yeah, if you sign up today, then I'll send you the Zoom link later today for the Zoom hangout tomorrow. And it should be really fun. We get to like play online games together because I love playing board games. And so we're going to do that tomorrow. And there's a whole schedule. There's like a thing pinned at the top of my Patreon page of the schedule for the next 4 Zoom hangouts. So into June of next year. So there's like a couples Q&A. There's like a paint night where I'm going to pick random people to paint each other. And then we have to show each other, which should be really fun and stupid all at the same time because I am not artistic. So, and then what's the other one?
That sounds really fun.
I can't remember.
I think I might join your Patreon. That sounds great.
Yeah, it should be a good time. So if you'd like to go do that, I can put the link maybe in my
So
just Empowered Pair on Patreon.
Just before we sign off, hit up Brittany's Patreon. Check out Michael Do Snap Pod. It's on my YouTube channel. It's also on Wheel Talk on Spotify, and also I've also started a Patreon. So I guess I've been a bit too shy to share it. It's
share it.
Yeah, it's Patreon/Fredo the Wheelchair Guy, and I've got ideas that I wanted. Again, I've got inspiration from you, so there will be Zoom hangouts if you want. But I don't have anyone signed up to it yet. I haven't told anyone about it. That's why, because I'm a little bit like insecure, like who's going to want to hang out with me on Zoom? But I guess I have an audience, and if anyone is interested that wants to play games with me or like hang out and get some FaceTime, that would be awesome. That would be great. And it's a way to support the channel and stuff like that. I've also got a new video coming out soon where I'm pretty much half naked in the whole thing. So if you're a devotee, you're going to really love that.
Yeah, exactly. I think Patreon, I don't have that many people on my Patreon, but and honestly, the first few Zoom hangouts were just me and one other person, which was really fun because I got to get to know him really well. So I'm hoping that there's going to be more people on this one just because I lowered the amount for the Zoom hangout. So yeah, I actually signed up for other people's Patreon accounts to see kind of what they do in their offerings to other people. So if there's some people that you like, maybe sign up for their Patreon accounts just to see kind of how they handle stuff. But yeah, I think it's just like a work in progress. Half the time I'm terrible at posting anywhere, but ultimately this is my favorite thing, like interacting with people, interacting with the audience, and really getting to know people. So
sounds good. I might sign up to your Patreon to see what you're up to.
Yeah, do it. I'll sign up to yours too.
Awesome. All right, cool. Well, thanks everybody. Let's bring it home, Brittany. Any last words before we sign off?
Don't think so. Just thank you guys so much for watching. And if you have any other like fun, interesting topics that you'd like us to sort of cover on these lives, I would love you guys to put them in the comments just because it helps to have interesting things that other people would like to see too. So if you want to do that, then go ahead and do that. But if not, then we'll catch you next time. That's actually a really great point. Brittany was going to do a Q&A, but she keeps forgetting. So let's just do it now. Any questions that you want to ask us? I know that you guys interact with us live, but if there's any questions that you want to ask us, chuck them in the comments after the live stream so we can see them. And then if they're good and they're juicy, then we will answer them next week. And until then, see you later, guys. Bye, guys.